Okay, council, I'm gonna call this meeting to order, our regular council meeting for Tuesday, April the 7th, 2026. I will ask our clerk to do roll call, please.
Mayor Klopp,
Present.
Deputy Mayor Becker,
Present.
Councillor Bailey, or Councillor Sangster,
Present.
Councillor Group,
Present.
Councillor Harris,
Present.
Councillor Hessel.
Present.
I have regrets from Councillor Lamport, Councillor Walden,
Present.
and Councillor Whetstone.
Present. Okay, we have quorum. Thank you. I need disclosure of pecuniary interest. Is there anyone at this time for any issue that we're dealing with tonight? Seeing none, but if something comes up again, approach the clerk. Approval of agenda. Anyone wish to move the agenda as printed? Councillor Groot, Deputy Mayor, anyone wishing to add anything? Seeing none, all those in favor of the agenda as printed, any opposed, motion carries. We're now at consent agenda 4.1 through to 4.14. Is there any issues anybody wishes to bring up at this time? I want to take one note, 4.6, Vandenberg Line Bridge. Councillor Groot.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I was actually going to bring up 4.6. I was going to ask our guys from the county who belong on county council there. Is this something like it's new to me that I read this? Is this something that happens a lot? And why is it happening now?
Okay, back in 2006, maybe somewhere in that area, council at the time was looking to try to save some money. And there was a process that these bridges go between municipalities through townships. And it was way back when we had 15 municipalities, and the county agreed that they would consider all the connecting bridges would be county. That was just, someone's got to pay it, and they're all important to everybody. So, but when we had amalgamation, there was some talk and that we could save some dollars and download them. And that motion carried back in the day. So this is the process. The good news is you don't want to have too many because there is now going to be more cost down the road. As you can see that how it was sweetened the pot to get enough votes. It was any bridge that before it would be downloaded would when it came that it needed to be rebuilt, redone. And that's why this one finally came up and got caught in this process. And as you can see, they're putting money towards it, etc. And as you can see, we'll put it in a reserve if you pass the motion so that when it does come to do some fixing, it's not a total surprise. But down the road, we'll be now sharing a cost between two municipalities. But the trade-off is you're at the county level, you should that tax isn't going to be on there at the county level. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for that last comment. And that was on the back of my mind. And we always have to say with is it $9 out of every $100 of tax money we get? So should we get $9.50 now? Because the county's not looking after that bridge anymore. That, like you're saying, and I'm not being funny about this, sure, they're downloading it, but does our intake for the municipality go up or we're just stuck with the bridge?
We're after this money is used between us and the municipality that we share the bridge with, we will be part of our asset management plan for the official term. Okay. But I do want it brought up. I did want to make sure we're noted of that. And Councillor Groot, first time he saw it. Go ahead.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just one follow-up question. I know when I was asking my question, I seen Mr. Kester put his hand up there and I didn't know if there was anything he was going to add.
No, through your worship, to Councillor Groot, you summarized it pretty much verbatim for the scenario. The only thing that I would add is that to my knowledge, I think this is the third structure that's been downloaded. The first one was on Kippen, and it was I think the county's primary focus initially was for structures that existed within the amalgamated municipalities, and then they went and branched off to ones that were between neighboring municipalities.
Okay. Anything else anybody wanted to bring up? If not, I need a motion to receive the consent agenda 4.1 through to 4.14 for information. Counselor Walden, seconded by Counselor Harris. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. We're now turning to number 5, management reports, planning. Sarah, please come forward, and you've got a few things on the agenda tonight. So whenever you're ready, go ahead.
Thank you, through your worship. I may have Chandra just read the purpose and effect for the public meeting before I proceed into the presentation.
So this meeting will now go into a formal public meeting at 6:35 PM to consider the proposed zoning bylaw amendment regarding file Z02-2026 for 37897 Zurich Hensel Road under section 3412 of the Planning Act. The purpose of this public meeting is to receive information on the proposed amendments and for the public to make any comments should they wish. Council will consider the application and any comments made when making their decision on the application.
Thank you. Thank you. And through your worship, just formal application. This is for file Blue Water Z02-2026 for a zoning bylaw amendment application. The lands are located at 37897 Zurich Hensel Road. The applicant is Tanya Eilers, and the lands are owned by Tanya and Gerd Eilers. The purpose then of this application is to construct a second ARU in an accessory structure for a total of 2 ARUs in accessory structures to permit a second ARU at a 97-meter distance from the main dwelling and to recognize a deficient side yard to an existing accessory structure or an additional residential unit that does exist today. Just to preface before council, just the lands are designated agriculture. They are zoned AG1 general agriculture. Under the provincial planning statement, 3 residential units or dwellings are permitted on a farm property. That includes the dwelling, the main dwelling, and that does include 2 additional ARUs, or accessory structures, or granny flats kind of thing as we call them. So that could allow the dwelling, the main house, and then you could have another second unit in that house or attached to the house, and you could also have one in an accessory structure. So you could have a total of 3 residential units on a property. Where this application differs is the owner is requesting to allow 2 ARUs in 2 separate accessory structures. So to maintain the house and then have the existing accessory structure which has a second dwelling unit in it, and they also wish to seek an additional accessory structure that has a second additional residential unit in it. For a total of 3 units on the property, 1 main dwelling, and 2 ARUs or 2 additional residential units. Where this one does not meet the planning requirements or the planning legislation at the provincial planning level in the PPS is it does allow 3 units on a farm property, but it limits 1 in an accessory structure. So this application is proposing 2 in 2 separate accessory structures. So just to give a context of the site, the lands are outlined in orange here. They are located west of the settlement boundary of Zurich. As noted, the subject lands are designated agriculture in the Blue Water Official Plan, and they're zoned AG1 General Agricultural Zone in the Blue Water Zoning Bylaw. This is the applicant provided sketch. So you'll see in the top left, and there's the pool there just for reference. That is the existing main dwelling. And they do have an existing accessory structure over here that has an ARU in it. That is the unit that is seeking the reduction to required interior side yard because an ARU or an existing accessory building with an additional residential unit must maintain a 7.5 meter setback in the zoning bylaw. The applicant requests a 6.59 meter setback, so they are deficient in that. Down here in the bottom of the image then is the proposed second ARU in a second accessory structure. So they want a second structure on the property to allow an additional ARU. This is the structure that is not permitted or not meeting the provincial planning requirements because there's a limit of 1 ARU in an accessory structure, which is already existing on the site. So the PPS allows only 1 in an accessory structure. They are proposing 2. Where this application also does not conform is that the setback to this proposed second structure from the main dwelling is 97 meters, when in the Blue Water Official Plan, the limit is 60 meters. That is also stipulated, not a specific number in the provincial planning statement, but the PPS does say that the existing structures should all be clustered together So the official plans and the zoning bylaws then have these minimums in them. So 60 meters was deemed appropriate because it could utilize an existing driveway. It would help prevent severance, and it could also utilize an existing septic system on the property if they were to share. So this application is seeking a second ARU or a second accessory structure when it is only one is permitted in the zoning and in the provincial planning statement, seeking a setback of 97 meters for this new structure when the maximum in the official plan is 60 meters, and then seeking to relief and recognize the existing setback to this existing ARU. Just provide some images here for context. This is showing the existing accessory structure that has been converted for an additional residential use. This is permitted on the property. This structure does have a right to be here on the parcel. The existing setback to this structure is deficient. It should be 7.5 meters, and it is below that. So that is where the applicant is requesting to seek the existing setback to this existing structure. This image shows the proposed location of what would be a constructed additional residential unit in a second accessory structure, which the applicant is seeking, which again is not permitted based on policy. They're capped under the provincial planning statement for one ARU in an accessory structure. So this application was circulated for comment. Blue Water staff, the fire chief, he did note no formal objection to a second ARU, but he did note objection to the proposed distance at the 97 meters because it does not allow for sufficient access or for fire separation and suppression. The drainage clerk noted no objection. They did note there's a municipal drain or branch A that does bisect the property, and any future construction must confirm building footprint does not impede on this drain. Public Works notes only one driveway would be permitted, and municipal services are available at the owner's expense should they wish to hook up. From the building code, the existing ARU, it was constructed. It was done so without a permit. Sewage flow rates and data were not provided. Building is not supportive of the application until building code requirements are met for that existing ARU to bring it into conformity to seek a building permit to legalize that structure and that conversion to an additional residential unit. In regards to the utilities department, water services are present. They are related to 1 meter, and they're to be determined with the cost, whatever should be happening on this property, that would be determined under the utilities department. And 911 addressing would be required if approved. ABCA notes no objection to the request. They do note that there are portions of the parcel under the regulation limits, and if any works are within their limits, necessary permits would need to be sought. Huron County Public Works did make a comment on the application as it is a county road. They would propose that it use the existing driveway. And Huron County Federation of Agriculture did provide a formal note. They want to emphasize the importance of following planning practices to protect prime agricultural land and reduce conflict. They note the PPS is clear that a maximum of 1 ARU is permitted in an accessory structure. And they ask that this amendment be carefully considered as it could be precedent setting if policies are not followed. And we did receive a comment from a neighbor. They advised they are not responsible for any potential backups that might result from the subject lands if this parcel were to be hooked up to municipal services. So in regards to the first request to recognize the existing setback to the existing ARU in that existing accessory structure, they're seeking to recognize 6.59 meters when 7.5 meters is required. The AG1 zone does permit an ARU, again, a maximum of 1 in an accessory structure. In regards to the setback itself, there is existing tree cover and buffering. It does abut the Zurich settlement area. So where that 7.5 meters is put in place is when we're out in an agricultural context. This one is a little bit different because we are abutting the settlement area and we have an industrial property next door to this. And it is also an existing setback. So recognizing that or legalizing that setback should not cause negative impact on the property. And again, it is recommended or required that this applicant seek proper building approvals for this ARU. I will note for council, it is proposed that section 3417 be implemented into the zoning bylaw tonight. So what was circulated before the public meeting was 6.59 meters. There's some question about the accuracy of that measurement that was provided by the applicant. So it's proposed to do a section 3417 to recognize 6.59 meters or the existing setback to kind of legalize where it is, whichever is the lesser. And then in regards to the request for a second ARU and a second accessory structure, and at that 97-meter distance, as noted, the PPS does not permit more than one maximum ARU in an accessory structure that is existing on the property. The Huron County Official Plan and Blue Water Official Plan both have similar policies, and the zoning bylaw clearly permits a maximum of one ARU in an accessory structure. The 97-meter setback is intended to maintain that building cluster, avoid severance, meet MDS or minimum distance separation, and utilize the existing site features and access, for example. As noted in the report, the applicant is encouraged to look into other options. As noted, they could do an addition to the existing structure. They could do a conversion in the basement of the existing structure, for example, to provide another form of housing to get that total of 3 on site. But ultimately, the request to allow a second accessory structure to be used for a second ARU is not consistent with the PPS, which clearly limits to a maximum of 1 ARU in an accessory structure, which does exist on the parcel today. So for these reasons, it's recommended that the municipality of Blue Water deny the request to permit the second ARU in the second accessory structure, and to deny the request to permit this proposed structure at a maximum separation of 97 meters from the main dwelling. It is recommended that the municipality of Blue Water approve the request to recognize the existing accessory structure at its current setback of the 6.59 meters, and with that section 3417 of 6.59 or whichever is less. And the language is there for that, and then to indicate by resolution the effect of public and agency comments. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that council might have.
Thank you. At this time, is there any questions to our planner before we move on to the other applicant?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, first question is that, and I never through my reading, and hopefully I got it right, is, regardless of how many ARUs, I've read that these cannot be severed after they're added to the property. Is that an accurate understanding?
Through your worship, the intent of the policy would not permit a severance.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, second question is, and as we're going to look at potentially recognizing the existing ARU, that is an existing building, right? That's not a new building they're putting, that's a building that's always been there or been there since the house. So that's really, they're not adding a building and then a second building. That's a building that's an ARU in it now.
Through your worship, that was an existing accessory structure, which they did convert, to my understanding, without building permits into an ARU, but it is an existing building.
Understood. So my third question to you, sir, is so, I guess, sorry, I got 4 questions, pardon me. The third question is, so that then if they were to build another ARU, that's the first ARU they've added to the property. They've just converted a building to make an ARU. It's not like they've added 2 ARUs. They haven't added 2 buildings. This would be the first building they would add.
So through your worship, it would be a new building, but under the policies, they would only be allowed 1 ARU in an accessory structure. So if they put in this new one, then that one that's existing, they would not be able to use as an ARU.
I understand. Okay. And then the third question would be through you, Mr. Mayor, to our fire department. We're 30 meters over the 60-meter limit, 100 feet. And I understand and I accept that they say fire suppression could be a challenge. Is there anyone from the fire department here to say why is that extra 100 feet going to be a challenge, or anybody can explain that? I accept they're saying that. So it's 100 feet, another 30 meters in the laneway. Is there anybody got an answer for that?
Through myself here, I just checked with the clerk. Unfortunately, our fire chief isn't on Zoom right now, so he's not here to answer that.
Understood. Well, okay. So that's from my point of view. I drove by the property today. I took a good look at it. The building has already been there, even though we call it an ARU. They're not adding that structure. They're asking to add 1 structure, not to add 2. That's my point. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Sangster.
Thank you. I've got quite a few questions on this one. One, I live across the street. So when I'm looking at the fire, I also have questions about that, as there's a barn and a building back there. So if they can't get fire suppression to the ARU, how are they getting into the barns and the building? There's a hydrant right in front of their house. So there's water right there, as well as Edward Street is right there as well. So those are two things I noted. The land beside this is for future development. That's one thing I noted. So building in this area makes sense because the area is already slated for future development. It's just separated. The people, the owners of this land are doing succession planning to keep the family on the property. And this is very much a family property and kind of like an estate property. The lot lines are very not accurate in Zurich. Recently, in the last year or two, they have moved their fence to adjust to this lot line. And in 1996, that building was there. My parents were going to buy that building in 96, and that building has been there since
Which building is
96.
that? Right, which building?
The garage with the ARU. So to me, living across the street, our neighbors, nobody has any objections to them building an ARU on this lot. As that building has always been there, that garage has always been there. They have been doing phenomenal on their property to adjust survey lines as well as locates. And the one driveway is not an issue, and it never has been. So that's just as a neighbor and somebody in the area, the ARU makes sense for this property.
Okay, any other questions? And we will have opportunities again to talk to the staff. Do you have a question at this time?
Yeah, just,
Or The applicant speak.
so I just want to make sure I heard it. So let's call it the one that we're saying that's to be built. Okay, so just so it's easier to clarify it that way. So did I not hear that under provincial policy, it's not allowed? Is that correct? Did I hear you say that or not? Sorry.
Through your worship, provincial policy permits one ARU in an accessory structure. So I acknowledge there is one existing.
Right.
But they cannot have a second one, which is what they're proposing further back in the field. That is not permitted under provincial policy.
And it's provincial.
It's
policy.
provincial policy, the provincial planning statement.
Thank you.
Okay, supplementary question?
Just to follow up on that, we just looked at the map at Eugene Street and it's 19 Eugene Street and it's 19 A, B, C, and D. How does that work on a property?
So through your worship, I don't know
Next
off
one.
the top of my head right now which one's which. I'd have to look into the 911 understanding and numbering on it. Sometimes it's a business number, sometimes like the farm building might get a 911.
So they have a 19A, a 19B, a 19C, and a 19D. So how do they have 4 buildings on one property and they're not allowed to have 2
Oh.
accessory units,
So through your worship, you're allowed to have multiple buildings on a property.
but they're all residential?
To our understanding, there's a house, there's an existing ARU in a garage, and they are proposing to have another ARU in an accessory structure. So the total of 3 is fine, but you're capped at 2 in an accessory structure.
So how does that work when it's one address and it's got an A, a B, a C, and a D?
So it is allowed under provincial policy to have multiple residential buildings on a structure or on a site, but the number is capped to 1 in an accessory structure. So
they could
adding an
have
Oh,
2,
Finish.
so could they have 2 main residents and your ARU on the property? Is that what you're saying?
So you're allowed to have 3 units in total. So you could have your house and you could have an accessory structure in a garage, for example. And then you could have a third one, which is an addition to your building. You're allowed to have a maximum of 3 in various configuration. The PPS limits 1 additional residential unit in an accessory structure. They have that existing. Under the PPS, they cannot do a second accessory structure that would have human habitation in it.
So for example, Jerry Raiders, they have A, B, and C. How does that work?
So through your worship, I don't know another property or the context, we have to pull it up, but parcels do have multiple buildings. They may not be for residential. So this one we're speaking to is the request for 3 in total residential dwelling units, 2 of them in accessory structures, when the PPS only allows 1 in an accessory structure.
So
Perhaps Aaron would like to speak
Yeah.
further.
you
So-
understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, through you, Chair. I'm just gonna clarify a couple
Yeah.
points. You brought up 19 Eugene. I believe 19 Eugene is a vacant land condo, so it's not viewed as one residential property. And when we look at the other property in Zurich there, Jerry Raiders, there's multiple there, but one of those addresses is a business, not the main dwelling, right?
Okay, so two of them are residential?
Two are residential Jerry Raiders, that's right. And
Okay.
there's one business address there.
Okay. And we will allow, like, you can,
Go ahead.
we can keep moving here, but any more questions? I'll have a chance to talk. If there's no questions directly at right now for the planner, this is a public meeting. I will ask the applicants if they will please come forward if they wish to speak on this and give your comments, your support, and we will then open up to questions also that you may have. So for the record, state who you are, please. Your name. Thank you.
So now it's on?
Yep.
Now it's on.
Okay, so did you hear that I said I'm Tanya Eilers and my husband Gerhard is sitting here?
Okay, Tanya, go ahead.
Okay, and our initial purpose was or wish was to have another house on our farm to be able to move there when our daughter with her family and her husband, and they have 3 kids, maybe they will have 4, they would need a larger house and we need a smaller house. And the initial idea was to move across from the church or further down in the field. But the planning department suggested that we need to have a building in a cluster about 60 meters away from our main house. The only spot that we could build close to that 60 meters was 97 meters away behind the agricultural buildings. There was really no other option to build in a 60-meter radius.
Okay, anything else? No, I'm not, I'm just want to open it up now. There's questions that council can ask you. Okay, is there any questions to applicant?
You, sir, actually, to Aaron, like, could the Eilers apply to separate a lot off this farm to build a house on it? Is that a possibility that would allow that?
So through you, Chair, I'm actually Sarah's better to answer that question.
Through your worship, it is an agricultural property. They would be permitted to do a surplus dwelling severance, so severing an existing house. You cannot sever under provincial policy, like a vacant lot to build a house on, for example.
Okay. Any other questions? I have a couple, maybe just for clarification on what you're referring to, the ARU number 1, and this could be to either yourself or Sarah. Back a while ago, that was did go through a process at the municipality here. Did you not come to council and either through some formal process to even allow what was done there to begin with? Or was it the previous owner? Oh, turn it on, please.
The garage, when we bought the place, had already an apartment in there. And we just took out a building permit to add dormants on the, like windows, dormant windows on the east side of the building. And we renovated the apartment. And that was the only changes we made. And we had a building permit for it.
And if you can remember what year it is, that'd be fine. But what about the septic and the water?
Septic and water is connected into the existing weeping bed.
Did you do that, or was
No,
that done
it
by
was
the previous?
already there.
That was done by the previous owner. So you got a building permit,
Yes,
and I think we should be able to find record of that. One advantage or disadvantage of being on council, I recall this coming because I remember it being talked about. So I think that, I don't think anybody did anything wrong. I respect the comment made that there may be this ARU and the 7.5 meters, but I do believe you did approach the council or the staff to recognize, and as you pointed out, you did get a building permit and you And I think it actually went it got in because of the rules being changed that we can allow accessory buildings. But I will, if council wishes to have that information more clarified, we can get that. My other, I guess it was asked about the fire suppression. Looking at this map, the fire truck would follow up through, as was pointed out, if it's going back to fight the barn or that other shed, it could probably get back to a building back there. So I think I've got that answered. With regards to the whole business of the 90 meters, 97, as you pointed out, the province, if I heard right, didn't specifically say other than they said it should be clustered. Is that what I heard?
Through your worship, yeah, there's no specific number in the provincial planning statement. They leave it down to the local levels. And so the Blue Water official plan has 60 meters and so does the zoning bylaw.
And other municipalities might have a different number too?
Through your worship, across the county, it is 60.
Okay. But clearly the province said to try to get them as close as possible. I'm just making an observation. If they follow the way it looks, gets clustered pretty good. I'll leave that for that's my thought. There was one other thing there. Oh, with regards to how many we have, farm workers, is this the same rules that we're talking about putting up buildings for farm workers? Is this ARU, or is there something else added when it comes to farm workers' houses?
Yeah, through your worship, they would also be permitted farm or labor worker housing. In addition to this, there are provisions for that in the official plan.
Does it have more than accommodation for one person or like two people?
Through your worship, there can be for a couple. It comes in various forms of housing as well.
The reason I asked that, I have observed not that far from here, buildings that were built on farm properties for farm workers. If you, for lack of a better word, they look like apartments. I realize this is supposed to be a house and technically one or, they want to make as small a footprint as possible, but it is, if it looks like an apartment and it could be 10, I think the one that I know of has 10 or 12 people living in that building, but they all have their own apartments. The stretch of having two separate buildings, but it's still, there could be two different people living in them, ARUs at the house, which I think we can establish was there a long time and also did get a building permit. So it was there. This has been a number of years later. I have a hard time realizing again what the Federation said. Keep in mind, you don't want to set your precedents. I take that seriously, but yeah, if someone follows the rules and makes sure that I guess my other question is, and this is to the owner. They talk about hooking up water and sewer. Are you actually looking at hooking up the water and sewer to the Zurich system?
Well, the question was raised in our initial meeting, and it was asked, would you have your own sewage system, like a weeping bed, or would you like to hook up at your own cost? And we are open to either solution.
Personally, I would not think, because there is one person that's already wrote in about they don't want to have a problem at the road. I can look back here and get this confirmed, but we do have a unique situation there with after the other people have hooked in. I would not be supportive if you're going to hook into the sewage system. I think
No.
that would be a bridge. Just it can maybe be done, but when you already had one person write in, their only concern is they're not going to be responsible if there's backup in their property. And it's a unique situation there. And I can, if anybody, other counselors want to ask the staff, but I would really hope that you would do your own system. But
Yes, we would then.
I know I'm gonna ask, is there any other questions to the applicants? Cause I do have to ask for public input yet. If there's anybody that is on the record. Can I do that before we ask questions? Thank you. Is there anyone here that has concerns or support for this application? Is there anybody on Zoom?
Mr. Whiting, do you want to come speak?
Go ahead, sir. Come up. State your name for the record and what your comments are.
I'm Larry Whiting. I'm environmental service manager for the Blue Water Rest Home. We did write in, we're concerned that the pumping station is owned by the Blue Water Rest Home and the line is owned by the municipality. We did have an episode a few years ago with the insurance company that it was a backup into the insurance company. And we just don't want anything hooking in and us be responsible. We just like to, we know that there's going to be people wanting to hook into that line and everything. I think the best thing is the municipality should take over the pumping station and we wouldn't have to worry about that.
That's another issue for another day, but thank you. Duly noted. If I may, so you're not necessarily against what they want to do, but you're advising that we do not allow a hookup. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, we're not against what they're doing. Like, we're okay with that. We just want to, if they do hook into the sewer system, that we are not liable at any way whatsoever.
Okay. I think that ties.
And I'm not,
into
and I'm not too sure. I'm not too sure if, because I'm not an engineer or anything, but because of pumping station, if you hook in, keep hooking into that line, does it faulty the pumping station? Like, pumping station was all designed to run there, and we already had found out that somebody had hooked into it that was not known, and we just want to make sure that there's not problems down the road. That's the main thing.
Okay, thank you. All right, anybody else on Zoom or anybody? Thank you. Back to council, further questions, and then we need to get moving along here. Councilor Russell next.
I'm struggling over this one a little bit just because I understand the aspect and I hear from the province regularly how they want to create housing and make sure it's sustainable for people and families to stay together and everything else. And they also want to see growth. And it's a contradictory statement, I guess, that the policy is saying. And I guess that's my concern is the province is saying one thing completely different than what the policy says. And that's where I just really struggle, is that they want our seniors or our elderly families to stay out of the system because there is no system. It's broken. And we have a family here that wants to solve that problem by saying we're going to stay on the family farm and we'll have our younger families take us and monitor us. And yet, I don't want to argue with the planner because this policy statement is a policy statement. At the same time, the acknowledgement that the province keeps telling us all the time is they're saying something completely the opposite. And for me, that's where the contradiction lies, is you have a provincial government saying something completely different than what the policy statement says. And then I have to ask the question, well, who is actually following the policy statement now? Like, is anyone following? Like, has anyone broken this rule? Like, I feel like if the province is advocating for something different than what the policy statement says, then we can't be the first one that's run into this. And I guess that's where I'm kind of stuck, is I'd love to know, has anyone else decided to go against the policy statement?
Well, I guess that'd be directed to the planner.
Through your worship, I know we have had some requests for setback reductions to that additions to that 60 meters. I don't know of any in Huron County that have asked for a second ARU in an accessory structure, off the top of my head.
Yeah, and the 60 is what we do though, right? The
Correct.
policy
Yes, through your
statement.
worship.
So I don't want to get that
Yeah.
confused. Because the setbacks are different. That's minor in my opinion. The policy statement is where I kind of have a concern, and it's not that I think anyone's trying to do anything wrong. It's just the province is telling us something different than what the policy statement advocates. I think that's where the problem lies. Because I think they're saying we want to see growth. We want to see homes for people to stay in longer at the family farm or longer in the community. Yet the policy statement that they created that we have to follow does not advocate for that. That's the issue. And I hate to say it that way. That's where I'm struggling right now. It's not us in the setbacks. I'll be right up front. If it was just about the setbacks, I put my hand up, let's pass it right now. I want to know why the policy statement is contradicting what the provincial government is telling us. And that's where you're stuck in a bad spot. And I hate to say it, that's where you're stuck right now. Our provincial government is telling us something completely different than what they're advocating for in public. And I in all regards want to support this. I want to know which policy state, like, has there been anyone else in the province that has gone against this policy statement?
And you've heard the answer.
No,
Already.
no, she didn't give me the answer. She gave me the opposite, actually. She gave me what we write down from here in county saying this is our direction, setback in meters. She did not give me an answer on, sorry, I don't mean to contradict and I'm not trying to say.
No, I can clarify.
Okay.
So through your worship, to my knowledge, no, none requesting a second ARU in an accessory structure. I was just saying we have had applications that have sought relief to that maximum 60 meters, but no, to my knowledge, nothing specific asking for a second ARU in a second accessory structure.
And keep in mind, this is all fairly new stuff, to be fair, because the longer one has a policy, the more, and that's where we're going to be making decisions here. Your comments are very well noted. We will see at the end of the day where we go collectively. Councillor Group, where are you, questions to
Okay,
the
thanks,
owner,
Mr.
to the planner? Or
Thanks,
comments?
Mr. Mayor. More of a comment and a thought. I'm agreeing with Councillor Hessel here. He raised some really good points. You know, the province wants to see more homes built, build more homes faster, et cetera, et cetera. We've all heard those things, and trying to keep people out of the system is obviously another item that comes up. It sounds like a good plan to be able to do these things. I guess it's probably leading up to a question here is, if we're not sure if this has been done anywhere in the county or the province, if we approve it here, is that the last stop? I have to assume that's probably not.
I don't know, point out to the, ask the, that's a planner can clarify that.
So through your worship,
Yeah.
this is a local application at the zoning level. So the decision today would be left with the local municipality. I will, if you don't mind, perhaps I kind of will circle back to Council Hessel's question, sorry. We do have to keep in mind, this is outside of a service settlement area. Policy from the province to allow housing, all forms of different types of housing. We see this specifically in Zurich and Hensel, and not yet in Bayfield, but they want to do a lot of ARUs, intensification in existing service settlement areas. A lot of the policies for additional forms of housing, triplexes, quadruplexes, is all in fully serviced settlement areas. This is a slightly different context. We are in the agricultural area. They are allowing 3 ARUs or 3 dwellings on this property. I'm not denying, you could have 3 dwellings on this property. That is 3 forms of housing. But the issue on this one is the province would like to restrict the number that are in accessory structures to 1, because it could have conflicts with MDS, the minimum distance separation setbacks. If the more structures you have on a property with residential uses in them could have limitations for MDS, for example. I do acknowledge this is right beside a settlement area. We would have a double distance, but these are a number of things that the province took into consideration. And they have said that it is allowing 3 on-farm properties, but a maximum of 1 in an accessory structure.
Councillor Bailey did have her hand up first. I'll get her and then Councillor Hessel and then Councillor.
Just clarification when I was listening to that. So accessory structure, is that a garage?
So
I'm just trying to think of the different buildings.
So through your worship, farm properties are a little different On an R1 property or residential property, the house is the main use, and you can have a garage accessory to that. In an agricultural property, sometimes the barn is a main use, and you could have a house accessory to it. You could have a house as a main use. It's a little different when it's in an agricultural area. I'm calling these accessory structures because here the house is one, it's like when we look at it from the side of dwellings on a property, the PPS allows a main dwelling, and then it allows 2 additional ARUs, could be 1 in an accessory structure, could be 1 in a basement, for example. And that's how I'm classifying to say it's accessory because it's being used as like another form of housing or accommodation on the property.
Okay, Counselor Hessel and then Counselor Whitstone and then Counselor Crew.
So I have a couple quick questions, and like you spoke of MDS. I can appreciate where you're coming from. At the same time, I believe the way that sounds is not correct, in my opinion. I'm not trying to say that it's not valid, and that's not to be against you. I'm just looking at where the property lands. It lands adjacent to the town, basically. It is considered future development. So like MDS is going to impact all that, and any future growth will impact all that. And the idea is that we're just trying to grow the town, and technically you kind of are. I think the key, or a key important statement that you mentioned is that I don't think if this were to ever go ahead that it should be allowed to be subdivided. Like that should be something that they are strictly aware of right up front. This is a cluster, one lot. That's what you're getting. You're not going to subdivide this down the road, and that's just how it is. And the infrastructure itself, I appreciate where you're coming from, but I can tell you right now, we just allowed infrastructure to happen just outside of Bayfield, and they put their own sewer system in until the bigger system grew. So we're already letting people do that without the services. And that is our planning department that did that. So we can't say that hasn't happened. So I appreciate the arguments, but I just want to remind everyone that this has happened already from the infrastructure part. So that should not be a part of our weighing because we've already done it before. I'm not saying precedence. I'm just saying it has been done before. Everything should be taken on its own merit. And I think the only other thing I will mention is, unfortunately, I wish everyone got the letter. I think it was just Counselor from Zurich and myself that received a letter from the church across the road supporting their it wasn't in the correspondence. I'm just acknowledging that I received it. And I believe Counselor Sangster's sorry, I do apologize. Received it, and it was just supporting the application itself. Not that that should weigh in too much, but there was a positive letter that went out too. I really struggle with this just because I don't understand where the policy statement's coming in from on this, especially if they're supporting the idea of growth and the idea of people staying in their community and staying within their families if they can. Like, to me, this contradicts what they say.
Okay, Counselor Whitstone, have a question, comment?
Yeah, it's a question.
Correction?
No, it's a question at this point in time. So, and it's maybe a little bit tying in with what Councillor Hessel said there. So what, based on the provincial policy statement, what is their concern by putting that in place? Like, what are they trying to limit? What's their concern? Safety, environmental? Well, you know, that's why I'm trying to understand really what the impact is by that statement.
So through your worship, my understanding, it's to have the buildings clustered. It's to prevent future severance. It's to limit the number of structures in a way so that you have various forms of housing on there, but they want to, I don't know exactly the reasoning why the province put a cap on one ARU, but that is the policy that is in place. You know, that's the direction that is mandated to, you know, protect from future uses that are contradictory to each other or that just don't work together. They're saying that one should be in an accessory structure, and this property already has that one.
Right.
Because of MDS, because of the clause, because of the use on the site. There's various reasons that they have listed out.
And as we just stated, we sometimes have to take everything on its own merit. You can't kind of do everything with the same and set precedent. We've heard that this hasn't happened before. We heard ARUs are still fairly new and we don't know where this would go. Why don't we be a leader and approve this and take it and let the higher ups go? First, they need our they need our approval first. Then it goes to county, then it goes whatever. That fight can happen someplace else.
as it pointed out, this is zoning for us here, but other people will look. Well, other people will look and we will base it the next time we have one. If, no matter what decision we make, everyone we know we deal with on their own. I will make a comment. I hope it doesn't create more problems. Planning isn't a science per se. There's, we want more housing and then there's, here's some directions. And that's why I think in the wisdom of the government politicians, why they allow zoning. Here's some big picture points, but here at this table, we can take all that in consideration and we can make direction based on what we think is the fine points, taking in all the tools in the toolbox. So, and this is a first, and so I'm glad to see we're having good discussion. We're not just taking it lightly. Councillor Groot and then Councillor Bailey. She had another
Okay,
question, but I'm
thanks,
looking
Mr.
for
Mayor.
direction here.
I had a thought, but I'm probably thinking twice about it. I know we've had some discussion and talk about special zoning in other areas, and I wondered if there was a solution here in special zoning, but I'm thinking that possibly not.
So through your worship, them submitting an application is their request to have a special zoning. So the bylaw, if council were to pass it, would give them an AG1-X and it would be a number and it would say notwithstanding the provisions, this property is allowed to have 2 ARUs in 2 accessory structures. So they're getting their own special provisions seeking before council tonight. The planning recommendation, I'm following or recommending to council based on provincial legislation. That's my responsibility to do. Council can take that information and do what they want with it. I don't like being in this situation a lot. It's hard. I can only do my job and make a recommendation to council. This is what the province has set out, and council can decide how to do what they want with the application.
Okay, Councillor Harris or Councillor Bailey, I did say, go ahead. You haven't spoke first. She's letting you the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and this is my question to Sarah. A lot of conversation on structure and structure, this structure, that structure. So just for, you did make mention, which I don't think anybody has discussed yet, that it was stated in the report that it was suggested that the possibility of putting an addition on the original ARU would be acceptable. So if we look back at the picture where the tennis court is, let's pretend for a second that the Eilers built themselves, let's call it a house. Could they have multiple dwellings in one single structure be acceptable?
Through your worship, I believe it's only permitted in the main dwelling that could have that accessory structure. I don't know exactly the configuration of it, which one becomes more the main building. I don't know, Aaron, if you have comments from building code on that one.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, essentially in that case, if you have 2 dwellings on a property, the one that gets the secondary dwelling in it becomes the main, is what generally how we classify it.
Okay, Deputy, you have any comments,
Yeah,
questions?
thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Direction?
The families selected this location. I have no problem with it. Councillor Hessel's expressed it very well. The accessibility for a fire department to get to it, there's all kinds of room. They're not gonna park in the laneway where the barn is. They're gonna come in the neighboring laneway to set up off the hydrant. Like there's all kinds of room there to access if there's ever an occurrence. I would advise the family, if they want to build there, to put in their own septic system, to do their own thing. You've got lots of land there to accommodate a septic system and to stay out of the system in Zurich. And I have no problem with your location. I think it's appropriate because of your other locations of where the buildings are today. We can't move those other buildings out of the way. And that's what the family wants. I'm fully supportive of it.
Oh, okay, council, we've had good discussion. If I can, as the chair, and you will tell me if I'm wrong. Everyone has had given points. Don't know how everybody's gonna vote, but I'd like to see a motion that we can at least debate one way or the other, and then we'll see where that goes. So at this time, is someone prepared to make a motion and we'll debate it. Counselor Bailey or Counselor Sanctor, sorry.
Yep. I would make the motion that we approve the second area on the property, under the recommendation of their own septic
That'll be a condition.
condition.
Okay, the planner did come up with a number of scenarios. Did you have one that we would allow to, she wants to allow it to go ahead? Do you have something that's more legal?
Yeah, so through your worship, Chandra, I believe, does have one. There was a version of council did go with the planning recommendation. There was a version of council did want to approve the request as was sought by the applicant.
Okay, so what could you read that and see if that fits her? Fits our mover?
The planning or the zoning bylaw specifically wouldn't reference the servicing of it. That's just something that's done through providing it themselves, or if they were to hook up, but we would not put that in the
Well,
zoning.
let's try to get something right here, then we'll ask about conditions. Thank you. I really appreciate that though. Do you have something that she's referring to? Sorry.
So Sarah, just to confirm, is this that the changes have been made to the bylaw after the holding of the public meeting? Does that fit?
So they're doing the first 1 and 2, and then we'll do another motion for the section 3417.
Sorry, I apologize. I have lots of options.
That's
prepped.
okay.
Just want to find the right one.
Okay, you're ready here? You've seen it. You did send it to her. She's looking it
Yeah,
up.
so through your worship, the first motion would be that bylaw 29, 2026, being a bylaw to amend the zoning at 37897 Zurich Hensel Road, be given first, second, and third reading and finally pass the 7th day. So that would be doing the passing with the second ARU, with the ARU at 97 meters, and to recognize the existing setback of the existing structure at the 6.59 meters. If that is what is requested.
Okay, and just to be clear, because we then still can make other conditions, council would.
Through your worship, zonings do not have conditions.
Okay, no, but just, and they're nodding, they're here, but just wanted to be clear. All right, so we have a motion that is on the table here. Any further discussion on that's been moved and seconded, I thought. Was it not seconded? Okay, it has not been seconded. You want to second it? Thank you. Counselor Groot on the motion.
Yeah, on the motion, I wouldn't mind, make a comment. I think, in all due respect to what Sarah is doing, right? You're doing your role that you have to do, but I think Councillor Whetstone said a good statement there a couple of minutes ago that, like, let's be leaders, let's push this forward and see where it goes. Because I think we're going to see more of these things happen. Okay, so I would be prepared to support it as well.
Okay. Any other comments? All right, with regards to the motion, I'm supporting it based on that it's very unique. It's beside the village. The government, I think, with agriculture discussion, when we talk about 2 ARUs out in the country, they're talking about, out in the country. And one of the reasons why they said, we really like you to stick with 1, but again, council can do what they wish. Because you don't all of a sudden have 10 houses in a row. You have a subdivision. And that's kind of the simplest reason that they try to hold you. Also, yes, keeping it close so that because everybody down the road can sever. We all have properties that grandpa built or somebody built, and the world didn't end, by the way. And they were severed. And it's been good, I think, for everybody. Sometimes there's issues. But in this case, it is as close as you can get. The MDS, good to point out, but the MDS is already an issue there regardless. Because down the road to the point, if there's all of a sudden I'm going to have and they come to this table out 5 miles out of town, I want to have another one I'm probably gonna say no, and they said, we allowed this one if you voted for it. This one is, again, everything's unique. So the fact that it's right beside the village, it is as close as you can get without interfering with farmland, is if we're trying to save farmland. And I also, for the record, assuming that if they go for a building permit or whatever process that is for conditions, that I certainly hope council votes that they have to have their own septic bed based on what we heard. But as pointed out, this is today's zoning only. That's the reason I'm supporting it. Councillor Hessel.
I just request we have a recorded vote for this. That way it sets a precedence. So people at the provincial policy statement hear what we're saying.
Well, we're not going to change the provincial policy statement. I'm not arguing about the provincial the government says, but you locally can make decisions. So, and work around the policies as best you see fit. But, so I have no trouble with recorded vote. Everyone, by the way, again, colleagues don't want to sound preachy, but I will. We always set precedent every time you vote on anything zoning. It's just the way it is. Okay, are we ready to call the vote, councillors? Where everybody figures how they're going to vote? You're ready? Feel comfortable? Okay, on this motion?
Okay, the bylaw 29/2026 being a bylaw to amend the zoning of 37897 Zurich Hensel Road be given first, second, third, and final reading the 7th day of April. Mayor Klopp,
Yes.
Councillor Harris,
Or
Councillor Walden,
Yes.
Councillor Whetstone,
Support.
Councillor Groot,
Support.
Councillor Sangster,
Support.
Councillor Hessel,
support.
and Deputy Mayor Becker.
Support.
That carries.
Okay, so where we're at now then, Sarah?
Yeah, so through your worship, we'll need a second motion. This is whereas the council of the municipality of Blue Water has held a public meeting pursuant to section 3412 of the Planning Act with respect to proposed zoning bylaw, and whereas certain changes have been made to the proposed bylaw after the holding of the meeting. Now therefore, the council of the municipality of Blue Water resolves that pursuant to section 3417 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, P13, the changes were of such a nature that no further notice is to be given in respect to the proposed bylaw prior to its passing. So this is just changing from the regards to the existing setback to that existing ARU. They're seeking of the 6.59 meters, just due to the potential discrepancy of those measurements. It's recommended that it be either seeking that or the existing, whichever is less. So that is a change that had to be done to the bylaw after it formally was circulated to neighbors. So we have to pass this in order to do that change.
Okay, you heard the motion, Councillor Walden, second by Councillor Groot. Any further clarification? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries.
And through your worship, the final one is just for the public and agency comments. So the recommendation would be 8A, no public comments were received on this application. So there was no effect, or sorry, no public objections were received on this application. So there's no effect on the decision. And 5B, comments were received from agencies identifying the issues of nonconformity with the PPS, fire suppression, building code, etc. Comments were thoroughly considered, but the effect did not influence the decision of council to approve this application.
Okay, mover, Deputy Mayor, second by Councillor Harris. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. And anything else now that Sarah?
Worship, not on this one.
Okay, all right. Okay, to the applicants, this is your first step. You other steps to go if you wish to go further. Okay? All right. Okay.
Thank you. Bye. Good to see you.
Okay, community improvement plan. Application. Sarah?
For your worship, I'll just share my screen here. Oh, sorry. Just have a brief presentation for this one. So this is regarding community improvement application for 5 Bayfield Main Street North. The owner and applicant is Black Dog, care of James Sandwitz and Andrew McIntosh, apologies. So this application comes for a request to the municipality's CIP grant for works done on a property. We have a parcel here in the village of Bayfield. In the image on the left is the 2020 air photo, and the image on the right is the street view. This is the Black Dog Restaurant. The lands are designated core commercial in the official plan and zoned core commercial C4. It's located within the Bayfield Blue Water Community Improvement Project area, and they are looking to seek a grant under the Bayfield Heritage Conservation District Plan or the Heritage Grant under that community improvement plan, and the lands are a contributing parcel under the Bayfield Heritage Conservation District Plan, and they're looking for the maximum grant amount of 50% or $5,000 for proposed works to the site. Just to provide an image here, this was provided by the applicant. They're looking to replace approximately 7 street front facing windows. They did get 2 quotes for those. The preferred quote was approximately $10,245.32 plus HST, and the applicant is requesting the maximum grant of $5,000. The replacement would enhance the existing facade and contribute to the streetscape and the historical elements of the building, and also to allow for upgrades to the windows more for energy support on the property, or energy efficiency, apologies. And although the CIP Heritage Grant Program does not explicitly list windows under replacement, there is a provision that based on staff direction and council approval, that various facets can be taken under this grant program. Staff feels that replacement of these windows is deemed appropriate for this site, and it is recommended that council does do the grant monies for the approximate $5,000 to help with the replacement of the windows at this site. They did initially request for 11 windows. It's been scaled back to 7, being the ones that are street facing, because the other 3 on the end would be, rear yard building ones. No staff concerns at this time. The applicant is to obtain necessary permits for any works on the road or sidewalk, and it is recommended that the application be granted in the amount of $5,000.
The ward rep, what's up? Do you have any comments?
No, that's what CIP is there for, and we talked about the facade only at this point in time, or the front facing, and that's the biggest concern. I have no issue with moving the recommendation.
So seconded by Councillor Hessel. Any further discussion, councillors? No, I think this is what we put this program in place for, and wonderful. I hope it passes. I think it will. But anyway, I'm going to call the question. Sorry,
just to clarify with the mover. So if we could break this down into that we passed the bylaw for the community improvement grant agreement with the Black Dog. And then the second one would be the amendment to budget, if we could do those separately.
Okay, so great. So this is to the bylaw 4 to do.
Yeah.
Okay, first seconder agrees. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. And then number 3 is what we're referring to on that recommendation.
Yeah, that's correct.
Recommendation number 3.
So
Mover to second, Councillor Bloodstone, Councillor Hessel. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Blue Water Official Plan Review, 3rd draft. You have 3 minutes. I'm just kidding.
So I'd like to present the 3rd draft of the water. Apologies, sorry. I'd just like to formally bring forward the 3rd draft of the Blue Water Official Plan for a 5-year review of our policy document. Just providing a brief review here. We've gone through the kickoff meeting, the background reports, presentation of the 1st draft. We've done a 2nd draft. We had our public outreach through open houses and a public meeting, and we're in our 3rd draft today. Through public consultation, just high level, great again. We had 5,293 postcards, great turnout in our social media engagements, lots of notice on municipal websites, tax inserts, lots of viewing on our website portal for our mapping system. I've had quite a few property specific discussions and requests. I did bring forward a number of those at the last council meeting when we did have our public meeting. We also had a great turnout at the public meeting. We had 26 attendees, 11 individuals formally spoke before council. And at that, I also did do an overview of the project milestones, key changes in our 1st and 2nd drafts, and then also providing feedback from the open houses that was there so council could take that into consideration. And as noted, there were 4 outstanding items that planning did seek requests from council at that meeting. So I'll just go through summary of those. We did make the changes to the official plan in the third draft. So the first council directed related to concession 6, lot 11, lot 12. This is lands known as Rieger. The application or the applicant did seek a site-specific amendment to the zoning in 2022. So council did direct staff to make that change at the official plan layer to match the designation to the zoning. So that has been done in the third draft that is before council tonight. So the image on the right would show the land use designation in green being the natural environment, and the lands not in color then would be agriculture. I did discuss this with the applicant and share an updated plan or version to them, and they are satisfied with the change. The next one here is regards to Phillip Street East, Plan 527, Block A by Goss and Becker. And this was a formal direction from council to remove these lands from the settlement area of Dashwood. And then in thus designating the lands as agriculture. So that is a change that was done in the third draft before council tonight. And then the third and fourth one would be direction to look at a special policy area for the village of Zurich, specifically the east end, and then north up to Blind Line. So council directed staff to review and bring back draft language for a special policy area. And so the purpose of a special policy area is to recognize existing land uses, to provide clear direction for future uses, to maximize flexibility for future development, and to outline issues to be addressed at the time of development. For example, if someone were to go through a zoning application. So in this one, we do have the study area here, east extent to Zurich and extending north to Blind Line. The existing lands in this area were brought into the settlement area in the 2018 official plan review. In blue, the lands are designated industrial, and then the 3 properties to the north are community facility, and that's the Huron County Works Yard and the Blue Water Yard. In review of the request or the proposal for staff to go back and do a special policy area, we looked specifically at each of the parcels in this area. So lands at 72881 Blind Line to 72853 Blind Line. The existing uses of all of these parcels do comply with the official plan designation and the zoning bylaw. There's no area-specific considerations needed. So at this time, it's a recommendation that that area does not require a special policy area or direction because the existing land uses are there. They have a right to continue. They conform with the official plan and the zoning bylaw. So staying in that community facility designation, for example, is appropriate for that parcel. And then the 2 there, or sorry, just the one then that is industrial, it does match the use as well. So these lands we would not recommend an SPA on. For parcel at 72837 Blind Line, this is the old grain mill operation. The existing use does comply with the official plan as well as complies with the zoning bylaw. There are some specific considerations here, including environmental compliance for approval for air for emissions, for example. And these are standard for industrial operations. So staff recommendation is this does not require a special policy area direction as the existing industrial designation and zoning does meet the uses that are on this property. I did have a call with the owner of this parcel and they are comfortable with the existing designation staying on this property. In regards to 72829 Blind Line, this is the corner property on the south of Zurich Council Road and Blind Line. There's no active use presently, so it's unclear if the use complies with the official plan designation or the zoning. There are area-specific considerations such as air emissions from neighboring industry. And this one we would recommend that it would benefit from a special policy area direction. I did have discussions with the owner on this one. They're aware of that and do understand and do like the language that is being proposed for this property. And I do have a detailed list of that in my PowerPoint here. And then specifically for the lands at 38150, kind of where this all stemmed from, and then down to 38174 Zurich Council Road. These existing uses do not comply with the official plan designation. They are designated industrial and they are zoned AG4. The AG4 zone does recognize the legal non-conforming uses that exist on these properties, but due to the designation that is not matching what the land uses are on the property or the overall use of the site, as well, there are some area-specific considerations on this properties or the number of them, including environmental compliance with neighboring industrial, and then specifically in the area shown there in blue, we do have ABCA regulated lands and floodplain area. So this is where staff would also recommend or that this land would benefit from a special policy area. So the area of subject lands we've broken down into two. We have a policy area proposed in red. So I will note, we are also proposing the lands, the parcel that has the existing bowling alley, and then the two residential parcels just west of that to also be brought into the special policy area. So that extends just slightly, including 3 properties that were not identified before. That's because they are designated right now as highway, commercial, and residential, and there's just some existing uses there that they would benefit from a special policy area, similar to the other ones that we have working out here to the Rona site. And then in yellow is our second special policy area specific to that old Rona or that corner property. So when I refer to red and yellow in the text, just for visual, these are the lands that are under the proposed special policy areas. So for lands in red, that's the dwellings or the existing houses, as well as extending over just east of Jerry Raiders, including the 2 dwellings and the bowling alley. We propose special policy area language, and this is in the draft before council. There is also a mapping amendment that would highlight these properties being under a special policy area. So text specific to these in the official plan would say that these properties recognizes the area as permitting a flexible range of future land uses, including residential, highway, commercial, and industrial without amendment to this plan. And then considerations to be addressed at the time of the rezoning and or development include, but are not limited to, extension of water and wastewater, access, conservation authority regulated lands or the floodway, and compatibility with industrial area. These considerations would be there regardless of the designation on the property. You'd have to have access, you'd have to have hookups to water, you'd have to make sure that there was compatibility with industrial uses, if existing neighboring, and also, for example, conservation authority, for example, as well. The main point on this one is under the special policy area, these parcels could go back and flip from residential, highway, commercial, and industrial without needing an amendment to the Blue Water official plan. It would be done at the local zoning level. So someone could come in, say, I want to go commercial zoning. We'd look to the official plan that could say, oh, you could do residential, could do highway, commercial, could do industrial. It would be more favorable to do a zone change to commercial, for example. And then the area in yellow being the one just on the corner property, a similar language here, but the special policy area would recognize uses permitting highway, commercial, and industrial without amendment to this plan. And then considerations are similar for development, including extension of water and wastewater, access and compatibility with industrial uses. So we did talk with this owner as well, and he is comfortable with the provision for adding highway, commercial, and industrial. We could see this as a high, it's got great views from coming in on Zurich Hensel Road. It could be a great opportunity for a future highway, commercial site or industrial if that is the case. So just to provide a summary, staff have gone out and consulted with as many individuals as we can in this area. For those that we did have a contact via phone or email, we did reach out to them. There are 2 parcels here identified in orange that the municipality we don't have contact information for, so I did send a letter to them with my contact information outlining what the proposal is if they had any questions. So the 2 in orange have not received a response to yet. Those that are all identified in green, I have had discussions with them. They are all happy and satisfied with the proposed SPA language for their parcels. A lot of them are happy to know nothing's being taken away from them, but in fact, things are being added to their parcel that could allow existing uses. And they all are aware that it would be contingent on a zoning application. And then the land in blue, just from since my report, that one was identified as a red, but it has been changed over to blue. I did talk with that owner and they are comfortable with the SPA language. And then the one in purple, I received a formal letter on that one. I've tried to reach out a couple of times, but haven't received a response back on that one. I think overall very successful in the responses that were here. Given on this one, a lot of the parcels are in green and all the people there are happy with the language that's proposed. So I think that's a good thing. Just to give some quick summary, I've got 1 slide for the mapping and 1 for the text. Key changes made in draft 3. We didn't have a lot to do because we had done so many previously and it was just the direction on those 4 items. But there were slight changes to the special policy area that was implemented specifically for 72981. That's Hessen land. That was just some additional discussion with the owner. We added endangered species definition to natural environment. We changed reference to Asaba Bayfield Conservation to be the applicable conservation authority just because of the changes that are done provincially with the mergers of those. So we wanted the plan to be more generic. and then adding the text for the special policy area 1 and 2, and we did identify the lands east or west of Exeter into the list of hamlets that are outlined in the plan. And regarding mapping changes, the changes to Schedule B for that parcel for the Rieger property, change to Schedule E for 87 Zurich Main Street. This is the one that's just on the west side of Zurich. It was a dual designation of industrial and community facility. The community facility was there because of an old community facility operator use on the property, which is no longer there. I did consult with the owner. He said it's no longer there, and municipal records indicate it's no longer there as well. So it does seem fitting to change that entirely to industrial. Added special policy area overlay mapping for 1 and 2 in Zurich, and then the removal of that Phillip Street property in Dashwood. Regarding next steps, we're prepared to prepare the final version of the official plan amendment for adoption. To note for council, municipal affairs and housing does require to approval of our complete application section. This is a new change that was done under Ontario Bill 17. It does require their approval. So what we would propose to do is keep the existing complete application requirements as they are currently in the official plan that it's in full force and effect, pass the official plan with that, and then when we get the approved changes from MMAH, we would do an amendment to the plan to then swap out that section for the new complete application requirements. It just doesn't hold up the official plan review waiting for MMAH to do that approval. So if council is supportive, the recommendation would be that staff prepare the bylaw for the adoption of the official plan and bring it back at the April 20th council meeting. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Councillor Groot, you had your fingers up. What do you, comments, make a motion or?
I'd like to have a comment and make a motion. I know I had some conversations with Sarah on some of those properties. They're east of Zurich, and I just had to say thanks. I know she did a lot of work on that, and I think everybody's generally pretty happy with how that worked out in the property owner. So I would like to make the motion that we move this forward.
Okay, is there a seconder for discussion? Councillor Bailey, Sangster. Okay, any discussion, councillors? All right. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I am done tonight. Thank you.
Well, this is just now on the next train. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Righto. Okay, we're now moving over to development services, 5.2. Aaron, 5.21, public art monument follow-up, Glen Gregor Square.
Good evening, council. Through you, Chair. I know this report came forward last meeting. For the Bayfield 150th, we have the Bayfield Center for the Arts is proposing sculpture for Glen Gregor Square. They're proposing to donate $2,000 endowment fund with that, and some minor staff time for bollards and removing some plantings. Basically, there's a few options for council to go through tonight, or how they want to proceed with this, right? One option to move forward is council could use go through the selection criteria and select and make a decision tonight if they wanted to, or council could defer this to host a public meeting, or let's say a public information session. And we could hold that in Bayfield somewhere to receive comments from the public. I'll open up for any questions.
Okay, and this is regarding the first one here about the, what we deferred last meeting? Correct. Okay, the Bayfield Arts Center. Councillor Mudstone.
This will normally, and forgive me if I'm wrong, but normally we would follow the process where it says there that we would, that the proposal would be evaluated and the selection criteria. And we normally use somebody like the Bayfield Center for the Arts to do that. Is that correct?
Correct.
Now, in this case, it's hard for them to do that when they're the applicant. It's kind of a bit of a conflict of interest somewhat there, sorta. I don't think it would sit well, to be honest, right at the same time. So I have had some discussion with BCA on this as well too. And they are in favor if a group, they would bring in independent experts along with non-experts from the village of Bayfield and be at that panel and then go through, because we haven't actually evaluated it yet. And our policy states we evaluate these things. So we're kind of going against our policy. And this is the first time we've used our policy and we're going to be going against it. So I think it would be good to defer that and that I don't know what it would actually state how the that, you know, there'd be an independent panel selected. But the Center for the Arts, they can still orchestrate that. We don't have to do that. They can be the one to pull that together in my mind. I think that the lead to do it, then it's not our staff time either then at the same time. So you kind of get where I'm going.
He's
with
ready.
this. So
So we'll have a motion, then we can discuss it, counselors. You making a motion, I think.
I am, yeah,
Direction.
if
a
I
motion
hear it.
direction.
So, if I hear what I'm saying, come back.
First one, you're.
Okay, Counselor Whetstone, that council defer consideration of the application until the proposal has been evaluated against the selection criteria in the public art and monument policy, and that the BCA create an 8-person independent review panel, including subject matter experts and community members at large, and that the results be brought forward to council for consideration at the May 4th regular meeting of council.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
You just say that. Hey, seconded?
Sure, I'll second it with comment if.
Go ahead.
And all I ask is that, it's not to be specific, but would really like to know that they're involving the different memberships of the community, whether it's Optimist, Lions. So whoever those committee members that are coming, if we can earmark that it was a representative from Lions, a representative from the chamber or whatever, I just think. Yeah, I just think it's important that it's just not individuals that they knock on doors and get 7 people and. So I just think it should.
Okay, comment, question on the motion?
Yes, and following Counselor Hessel, previously we discussed concerns about the height of this proposed structure and the dangers. And so when all this comes around, I don't want us to lose cognizance of that concern.
To the new design.
It's all changed. Okay. So it's come
Yeah,
down.
just jump in here through you, Mr. Mayor. BCA has indicated that they would keep it less than the height of the cenotaph.
Thank you.
Okay. You have a question? Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Last meeting when this was brought forward, they offered $1,000. I see they upped it to 2. Is that enough for future care and take of this proposal?
You want to answer that?
Maggie's gonna take a stab at it. Or manager of facilities, go ahead.
Thank you through you, your worship. The endowment funds really, I mean, up to council, the BCA, they believe that this piece of art will require little to no maintenance. In terms of the plantings that are going in the garden, it won't take us any more time than we're spending now on maintaining the garden, possibly even less, based on the plantings that they're proposing. I feel that the $2,000 endowment is sufficient. Of course, until something's in place, you don't know what type of maintenance it requires, but based on what the Bayfield Center for the Arts is telling us, in terms of what's required, it seems sufficient.
But again, that'd be, part of that community and discussion. You may be coming back with another number higher after you have the further discussion, just for because council, I think that's what he's referring to. Okay, the community involvement, I think that's important. It's amazing how many people were watching the other night, and it's not scientific, but I did have some calls, and they thought it was wise that council was moving the way we were, because they support the idea that wasn't the point, but they really do, people do take pride, and we all do, and we know why that Glen Craig Square was put in place, and we certainly don't want to do the wrong thing. So we put the word community in there. Do we have to add a few of these, good comments that were made, or just leave it a community and then hopefully they do reach out to represent, or do you want that as part of the motion?
I'm gonna look to the seconder on here because Councillor Hassel's like, could we just add community leaders?
Sure. What community groups, and then they decide, the leader might say, I don't want to go to that. I'm the president.
Well,
Maybe-
community leaders are still, all of the Lions is our community leaders.
Okay.
Right, you know.
Just-
Yeah, I get what you're saying, but
Yeah.
yeah.
All right.
I think, go ahead.
Sorry, so the way that it's worded right now is an 8-person independent review panel, including subject matter experts and community members at large.
Could it be community leaders at large?
I know it's fraught with danger a little bit because 8 or 9 and there's 70 people want to be on the committee.
Yeah, well, I think it needs to be like 50-50, to be quite honest, 4 of each, right? So.
Okay. We do have the word community in there as a direction of council, so I think we're all satisfied a little bit. We clarified it a little more. It won't hurt. Again, this is only a direction to us because it's they're going to be running it and we're giving direction. Okay, you want to read it one more time?
That council defer the consideration of the application until a proposal has been evaluated against the selection criteria in the public art and monument policy, and that the Bayfield Center for the Arts create an 8-person independent review panel, including subject matter experts and community leaders at large, and that the results be brought forward to council for consideration at the May 4th regular meeting of council.
Okay. All right, I'll see if there's any further comments, clarifications. Everybody clear in the motion? All those on this motion? Any opposed? Motion carries. Like all committees, it's going to be in our notes that there's a meeting being held at X, Y, whatever in Bayfield at a certain time for this meeting, in case anybody else wants to sit in. Or is that how I'm just asking? We'll see how it goes.
I believe it would be a public process, correct?
Okay.
Yep.
All righty. That's the one thing nice about the ward system. We have a counselor and close there, so he can watch this and we'll look for their input. Okay, that is done. We now move to the encroachment, 71865 Sunview Ave, 5.22.
Good evening, council again. So this encroachment agreement, in 2025, this is an encroachment agreement for, I don't have the address in front of me, covered it up. 71865 Sunview Ave. So this encroachment agreement is coming forward as a request from the owners in 2025. It was noticed and the complaint was received by a member of the public that a shed was constructed without a permit, and it appears that the shed was built on road allowance. Survey was received in early 2026 from Doug Culberts that showed that the shed was majority on the road allowance. The applicant is seeking compliance to have this building remain on site. The building is located within South Bayfield Conservation Authority regulated area and will need their approval prior to a permit issuance from our office. We are unaware if the building is within compliance of the building code or not. So there may be some construction or work that has to be done to the building as well. The one thing we want to note is that entering into this agreement could result in other owners seeking forgiveness approach rather than coming through the proper way, right? There's currently multiple sheds along this street that are on the road allowance. Those other buildings, those other sheds are in compliance with our encroachment policy because they were in place prior to the encroachment policy, which does talk about this. I'll open up for any questions.
Okay, Councillor Drew.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Mayor. It looks like over the last couple of years, there are some significant changes made to this building. Or totally changed. I guess I read through it a couple of times thinking, wow, is this real? I'm really struggling with this, that it would stay on municipal property and stay put. I'm not sure how we could do that. But anyway, that's my comment.
Okay. Where are we at? This is received for information tonight. Are we on any other direction? I guess receiving, okay, go ahead, sir.
And I'll move the recommendation to receive information, but I have a comment as well too.
Okay, is there a seconder? Counselor Harris, go ahead.
So what's next steps?
So through you, Chair, next steps would be, the building department division would be seeking removal of the building because they wouldn't be able to comply.
Okay. And all right. That's where we're at. If this motion carries. Everybody comfortable? Ready to move? Hey, excuse me, I called in the motion. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. We're now, thank you, Aaron. We're now at Public Works and 5.31. Tender awards, Lauren Ave. There's some recommendations here. I will turn to our ward counselor for opening comments, or if you wish, or do you want to have staff give some more comments? Okay. Coles, no.
Sure. Yeah, through you, your worship. So as indicated in the report, tender was issued for Lauren Ave reconstruction. So that's a section from Hensel Road through to Richmond Street north. The tender was structured in a way that allowed for a couple of pieces to be removed from it if we were ended up in some budgetary issues, knowing that the cost may be greater than what was originally budgeted for the project. As you can see through the report, that it was significantly over budget in a couple of areas. And so as such, the recommendation is that we remove, or so that we do not award items 3, 4, and 5 of the tender, which were for sidewalks and milling and repaving of the north section of Lauren Ave. That can be done at a later point, ultimately at council's consideration whenever they feel appropriate. But that items 1 and 2 be awarded to McCann Ready Mix to do the reconstruction for the road. As a reminder, this project does have grant funding associated with it for redevelopment purposes as well.
So your recommendation is you're talking about here, just to be clear.
The recommendation is to move forward with items 1 and 2 of the tender, which is the award of for reconstruction of Lauren Ave. Sorry. The recommendation, yes, and sorry, my apologies, all of the recommendations that are highlighted, yes.
Because it's referring to some, yeah, okay, sewer and also capital fund money. Okay, counselor, move that motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'll move that with a comment if there's a second.
Okay, it's been moved, seconded by Counselor Groot. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, and I totally understand. I had the conversation with Dave about this. It's not like 3, 4, and 5 can't be done at a later date, including the sidewalks. It will have the curbs. It will have the boulevards. It's just, there was a shortfall in budget, obviously. And then for those of you who aren't aware of what Lauren Ave is, the north section is the newer cul-de-sac section, which is actually the newest part of that road that was added on at a later date of the original road. Hence why we are able to do that portion up to that portion. And then as the other one ages, we can look at that at a different date.
Okay. Counselor Whetstone.
Yeah, just a comment or something as we move forward, like what has changed based on our budget versus, like, how did we come up with our estimate for our budget versus what actually came in?
Yeah, through you, your worship. So there was 2 items there. So we extrapolated the numbers from last year's construction project and added an inflationary value. Ultimately, it did come in slightly higher than that. And then the additional piece of that, and again, it's identified in there that there is some sanitary upgrades that we ultimately had included as part of the design to incorporate again for future growth that were initially not considered through, but ultimately identified by the consultant when they were doing their detailed design.
So it was discovery work when they were looking at the detailed design?
Correct.
More than anything else? Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Council, it's been moved and seconded. Is any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Tender awards plow truck. There's a recommendation here. Is there a mover? And then Counselor Hessel, Counselor Groot. Discussion? No discussion? Read it? It's okay, then I'm gonna ask for the motion. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Excavator leaser tender award. There's a recommendation here. Is there any questions to staff before we move on this? We've been talking about this for a long time. Counselor, their Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In the report, I didn't see any costing what we've spent in the last year or two for renting an excavator. I wish we would have seen that to compare to what the lease would cost us. Could our manager give us kind of a ballpark?
Yeah, through you,
Figure.
your worship. Yeah. And my apologies. I debated as to whether to include that information that was provided at the December 15th council meeting, but and I apologize for not including that report as an attachment to this one. However, I can tell you that in that report, it was identified that in 2025, as of December 15th of 2025, when the report was issued, we had spent $104,000 at that time in 2025. So and we were approximately the same dollar figures in 2024 as well.
Okay, any other questions? If I can add onto that, in fairness, we asked, if you have questions, send them ahead. Although Dave can think on his feet pretty fast, but with regards to 104,000, and we were talking and during the conversation, you mentioned that we do sometimes rent a heavier excavator. So I think I did ask, do you know, is that the 104 for the type we're getting now, or was that?
I can confirm that we did, that 104 was strictly for the 15-ton, which is being contemplated as part of today's report for leasing. Above and beyond that would be the heavier equipment that we get at different times for different capital projects.
Okay, and I did ask a number of other questions. One of them that I think I forgot, but I did send to you was, do we have a trailer that can pull this around?
Through you, your worship, it was included as part of this year's budget. We do not have that at this time. Initially, we're planning on just floating it, just renting a float to use it, or borrowing one of our neighboring municipalities has also been a discussion that we've had as well.
Okay, and do you have my other questions that I asked? Because
Yeah.
bring my computer.
Yep, through your worship. Yeah, I can bring them up here. So there was a few questions that were asked. One of the other items was with respect to fuel as being part of the whether it was part of the rental or not. It is not part of as part of a previous rental. It was not similar to the lease. The fuel would be our responsibility. Extended warranty on, and you'll notice here as well, it was just for clarification to the report, extended warranty was identified as an item in the tender itself. Anyone that was said that it was included actually has part of the lease that piece of equipment still has its original factory warranty. So we just wanted to get something that had 3 years worth of warranty during the lease period of time. It was a conversation during the tender itself that it would be unlikely financially to the advantage of the leaser to actually have third party warranty extended to get that. So that's why we're seeing the majority of them as actually being fairly new to keep it within the factory warranty of the piece of equipment.
Residual.
Yes, and then there was the conversation related to the residual. So the residual, it is identified that we would have the ability to purchase the piece of equipment at the end of the lease based on the residual value of the piece of equipment. I will note, however, at this time, and again, this was also identified in the December 15th meeting, we do not have the funds available at this time, and based on our fleet forecast, it does not appear that we will have the funds available at that time unless there is some levy changes that are made to accommodate that as part of a future budget for consideration.
Okay, thank you.
And then just, sorry, one other piece that I will note as well, that just maybe looks a little abstract in the table itself as well, that I did have confirmation from CG Equipment. They had identified, we identified a grader blade as an attachment to the piece of equipment, and or a grading blade, I should say, as part of it, the attachment to the equipment. That is, they had identified it as a purchase for that piece of for that attachment itself specifically, and that's why you're seeing that. And they're basically saying it would be your responsibility to purchase that from us for that $54,000.
Thank you. Counselor, question?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Dave. Did you say whether we serviced the rental one?
Through your worship, yes, we service. We would be responsible for servicing. We were responsible for providing just your standard servicing of the rental one. Sorry, I apologize for we're responsible for servicing the lease one. We're not responsible for servicing of the rental.
Okay, thanks. So Dave, so there could be whatever the cost of service is, we don't exactly see that in this comparison then.
Through you, your worship, no, that's correct.
Thank you.
Okay, I did have a question that sparked me. How did we arrive at the $50,000 in the budget for this?
That was actually, we had done, well, so interestingly enough, we had done some work with John Deere, and they had actually suggested that that would be the number that we should carry. And then ultimately, when it came to putting the numbers together, they didn't have a machine available that would actually fit within the confines of it. So they elected not to actually put a number in the lease, in for leasing actually. So it was actually through John Deere.
Okay. And so if I'm reading this right, our tender is 49,184, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And that's for 3 years?
Correct.
And how did you come to 3-year term on this?
We just picked a number. That's been kind of our number that we've been sticking with on the last couple of leases. That it's and sorry, that 50,000 is annually, that's the expense. But we've selected 3 years just because that's what we found has been working for us.
Okay. Any other questions? I do have one that kind of twigged here. The residuals, and some of them they're all over the place, but you've confirmed that you could technically buy them out at that time. And you said, well, there's no money in the budget, which is fair enough, but right now we are putting $50,000 in to lease every year. So probably council down the road would have 50,000, because I'm working on the assumption that, or maybe you're gonna have all the work done in 3 years. I guess. But I do like the idea of 3 years, 2 or 3 years, because things change, and I can live with that. And you pointed out we've had about 100 and some thousand that we've been spending on this. And so we're looking at about 50 plus oil changes and things like that, which do add up for those of us who have to put oil into tractors. Okay, is there a mover and a seconder for this motion? Councillor Harris, Councillor Walden, seconds. Any further discussions? Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. We are now at water and wastewater allocation policy. And it was a good read. But is there any questions to Dave on this before we keep moving along? Counselor.
Yeah, and although I did find most of my answers in there, I just want to make sure that I am understanding it correctly, because there was a lot of information in there for sure. There's no question. So I know one of the big things that I've heard in the public was, okay, so the infill should be the first ones that get get sewage allocation, because they've been waiting, and makes sense all along too. So from what I got out of this is that even though there's a first come first serve approach on this, which we'll talk about that in a second as well too, is that for 3 years those infill lots are basically guaranteed
Yeah, through your worship. Yes,
Capacity. That's correct?
That's correct. Yes.
And then from a first come, first served perspective, there was some challenges on that too, because we kind of had thought, okay, what if a subdivision more important than somebody else over here? And but the subdivision came 6 months after this person. So how do you do the first that kind of thing? But in our discussions, and am I correct that we have to go with the first based on
Yeah,
what you told me?
through your worship. Yeah, and we did have conversation with our solicitor on that. If there is servicing available to the lot that's being contemplated, we have an obligation to provide servicing to them. We don't really have the option to say, no, you can't have that. Because they're within the settlement area, they meet the criteria. So we're not really afforded that opportunity.
Okay, and I'm fine. That's not a problem whatsoever. And then what about subdivisions? Like when will they be guaranteed or secure allocation? How does that work?
Through you, your worship. So we would look at the actual application. Once the application is deemed complete through development services, we would look and basically assign it at that point, obviously, when it comes to council for the approval of that scenario.
Okay.
So that's when it would be deemed as basically
Okay.
when a complete application is brought to council, that's when we would deem it. So if there was somebody that came in after the fact, but was really on the ball and had all of their stuff together and it was like boom, 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 really quick and came to council before the one that was there first, well, then theoretically they would have allocation first.
Okay, that's fair. If things are more organized, for sure. And then the last question I have, it's more of a comment. I know in here it mentions that that staff would monitor this and report out annually, at a minimum annually anyways. And I guess I'm okay with that. I just am a little bit nervous based on what has happened previously, where we are today, where we all of a sudden ran into issues and we're over allocated and we don't have any more, and we're always potentially and could get fined from the ministry and everything as well too. So I just want to make sure that we're keeping good track of that and not all of a sudden bring it when it's like, okay, we're now at 80%. No, I'd like to see it a lot more frequent than that, to say we're at 5%, we're at 10% or whatever it is. So we kind of see what the trend, because that'll also give us a bit of a trend on what kind of growth we're doing at the same time. Now we would get it through a building permits obviously at the same time, but I'm not saying that we need to, but I just, I'm thinking, I'd like us to keep a lot closer to look on as to where we're going, so we don't run into issues and we don't start just saying, oh, Central here and they're coming here now. And that kind of thing, like, that's how we run into problems before. Right. So.
Duly noted. I think at any time you can ask for an update of what it's at a meeting.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and through you, your worship, it is something that that both Aaron and I have had fairly detailed conversation on, that it's something that's going to be dynamic within the office anyways, that we're going to be apprised of that information and want to make sure that we don't position the municipality in the same spot as what they were previously as well, right? So if it gets to the point where we're getting closer, it may be appropriate that we bring information to council on a more frequent basis as well.
So instead of me worrying, how about this? How about trying to make a motion along the lines that staff bring a report quarterly as to the capacity where we're currently at for allocation capacity.
Can that be part of our information we get every month from our
Sure.
building department?
Absolutely. I don't get, it can be part of that report as long as it comes forward. I don't care how, but
That's fine.
We get quarterly reports from the wastewater department, from Aqua. They add a line. Is that okay?
however it comes, I'm good. I just want to see it.
Do we need a motion for that, or is that just noted? All right, we're gonna do that motion first. Well, first we'll see if we pass this, then we'll do the motion. Okay, you moving the motion on the wastewater allocation policy? Who's moving that? Councilor Ayers, seconded by. Okay, and all those in favor? Any opposed? Now the motion on data collection. Councilor Whetstone moved a motion.
Yeah, the council direct staff to bring forward a report, quarterly report on the allocation status.
So Whitstone, second by Councillor Harris. All those in favor, motion carries. All right, I think we're now moving to 5.4.
Good, just one real quick on that. Thanks. That's a ton of work that you guys have done on that too. So it needs to be noted, like that's not an easy policy to put together and it's been a long time coming. So I thank you for that, by the way. So.
Duly noted, thank you. Maggie off, 5.4.1 Houston Heights Beach name change request.
Thank you, through you, your worship. Back in October, council received correspondence from the Houston Heights Beach Association. They were requesting council to consider changing the name from Houston Heights Beach to an alternative. And council made a motion to direct staff to investigate this request and to provide options for a name for the public access portion of the beach, currently known as Houston Heights Beach, and that a corporate naming policy be brought forward for council's consideration. So this report goes over a little bit of background about the property. We have determined that it has never been officially named like many of our park areas. So if council wanted to name it, it would be the kind of the first official name, and we would update records accordingly. There are some naming options that staff have outlined in the report if council chooses to create an official name for the park. And then there's also a section of the report that goes over kind of some considerations for council next steps. And then one of the attachments to the report is the drafted municipal naming policy. This policy, it's pretty high level, and it ultimately just kind of describes the process staff has taken for this inquiry. And so when we have future requests, we are kind of following the same process. If council has any questions, please don't hesitate to ask.
Okay, so I guess my first question is, this doesn't affect anybody's 911 numbers. This is strictly where a name change to a certain amount. Okay.
That's correct.
I heard the answer yes, because remember we have, that can happen. Okay, council, it was moved in second. We look into this. We want to keep moving here. Councilor, what's your wishes?
I'm going to make the recommendation that it's number one, that council approves the official naming of the municipality beach park located at 33717 Pavilion Road as Pavilion Road Beach. Sorry.
Second by Councilor Harris. Councilor Group.
I would totally support that. I used to bring the kids there when they were little. I always called it the Pavilion Beach.
Some people just showed up to the PAV, going to the PAV. But anyway, that's really dating myself. Okay, yes. All right, there's a motion, approved and seconded, and a name. So we've covered it all. And yes, of course. But we picked a name here tonight. So everybody be clear on that. All right. On the first motion, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. And there's a second to the bylaw be adopted. You're recommending that? Okay, is there a mover for that? Councillor Walden, seconded by Councillor Hessel. On the bylaw 28-2026, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Liquor License and Control Act update, BYOB events. There's a recommendation here. Anybody moving this one? Councillor Harris, seconded by Councillor Groot. And that's the direct staff to bring back a report on the proposal for the changes. All those in, do question?
Yeah, just
Comment.
comment mostly. Maggie, when I read this report, it really surprised me, but then I got thinking that could allow the municipality to hold more functions. Do you know why I'm going with that? Right, more sporting events, co-ed where the place is licensed and they can bring their own booze. You don't have to have bartenders. That kind of thing. That's kind of what was going through my head when I read it.
Not want that liability.
No. Hey, anyway, I'm not gonna make any comments on the ground. It could intimidate me. So this is the motion. We need to, the government direction in all seriousness, people, and the staff have to work within it. So this is why she needs this motion to move forward. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. We're now at administration. Council election electronic debate policy. This is a bylaw. People have read it. Is there a motion to move this? Deputy Mayor, Councillor Walden, any questions, comments? Go ahead, sir.
Quick. So at the end of our term, it's as it states, we can purchase this back at fair market value. If we're lucky enough to stay on another term, then do we just keep this, or how does that work then? It continues on?
I think that I would offer them the opportunity to purchase a new one. Sometimes after 4 years, it's not working as well. It depends how heavy of usage the device gets.
And then what do we do with the ones that are turned back in?
The ones that are turned back in, we would either repurpose them or put them up on GovDeals to see if anybody else was interested
Okay,
in
thanks.
repurposing them.
Like mine is from the county and it's from another counselor. Just so you know. Just so you know, like the one that I have, I don't know if you have, but I got mine through the county.
Right.
And it was refurbished from a previous counselor. So they recycled it. Now, at any time, any counselor not wish you happy, go and get a different model, whatever. But anyway, okay, this has been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Use of corporate resources during elections. This is another bylaw 2726. Again, you've read it. Councillor Harris, Councillor Groot, move. All those in favor? You opposed? Motion carries. Restricted out of council, lame duck. Recommendation, report, bylaw, and that the bylaw 2025-26 bylaw be delegated authority to the chief administration officer for certain acts during lame duck. And mover and seconder, Councillor Hessel, Councillor Sangster. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. CR recruiting organization review. 5.54. We had, as you know, we had we have a report from our committee. Here's the recommendation. I will open it up to the committee members that wish to speak on it at this point.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're minus one committee member here at the time. So, although the number looks a little bit scary, it did come in a little bit more than I anticipated. I thought it would be around 70,000. I will say one of our other committee members pegged it at around 100,000 and was very close for what was coming in as well too. So kudos to him for that. I look at it as I'm spending my own money in this as well too, right? And so I look at it, what's the benefit are we going to get out of this? So, and I know not everybody was involved in the process, but if you recall, I spoke about that we need to find a way to change the mold that we currently have today, that we're having, you know, CAOs are getting very expensive based on the role as well too. And if we're ever going to change things and how we're going to break that mold, because for better terminology, we're regurgitating CAOs. They leave here, they go there, they come here, and it's continually just, they want more and then more and then more. That's just the way the market dictates, right? So one of the things that came up in one of the proposals, which validated that assumption, was they were calling it, from a CAO perspective, a silver tsunami is happening, which means most of the CAOs that are out there are of age. So they're at the high end of their pay scale right now. And that's what they demand and that's what they get. And so be it. I'm not suggesting they're not worth that money whatsoever, right? You know, that's what it is. But if we're looking at trying to do something different, because we're not a huge municipality, but we're not a small one. So we're somewhere in the middle there too, which makes it a little bit more difficult. So I looked at it and I said, okay, do we know what we're going to end up doing with this all said and done? We may end up going back to a CAO thought process when this is all said and done. However, what we're gonna get out of this from when we looked at the KPMG, who's the one we looked at putting forward, they have what they call a target operating model. And within that target operating model, they look at our current organization and governance. They look at our services and our functions and our processes. They look at the technology and they look at the information. They look at our people skills, and they actually look at the whole, it's almost like an organizational review on how things we can do better at the same time and where we can actually see some of those efficiencies come at the same time. And then they look at us and say, they're going to meet with council. They're going to meet and say, okay, guys, why did you really want to do this? Well, we were looking for different options and we really need to start looking at doing something different. And that could be, as we've talked about, it could be a business manager. It could be a general manager. It could be CAO or a clerk administrator position versus a CAO position, you know, those type of things. But we're at a crucial time right now where it's getting extremely costly for us. We've got a $9 million bogey that we have to try to make up just between now and the end of this year, according to our last budget, on how we're going to get there to just even maintain services. So we have to look at doing things differently. Now, what we found is that when this came about, the first question was that, well, how are we going to fund it? You know, is this going to come out of reserves? Where is this going to come out of? Is this going to come out of the taxpayer's pocket, you know, right away? Are we going to have to increase a budget? And it's in here and it shows where it can come out of. You know, I struggled with it. I even thought, okay, maybe we could just do half of it. Well, how do you do it half? It just doesn't seem to really work from a half perspective. We could look at it and say, no, we'll do the recruiting. Let's take it as far and go to the aspect where you give us what you think it should be, you know, based on our feedback, and then we know where this council's at, and then we could do the recruiting. But I forget what the savings was of that. Chandra, do you recall? 35. I was going to say 35, but we still have to do it. So there's still a cost for us to do it then, or we have to subcontract that out or whatever. And we currently sub that out all the time when we're looking for CAOs. We don't do that, but at least we'll then have a really good, I see a couple things coming out of this. I see we're either going to have a really good job description as to what we really expect if we do go the CAO route, especially when we keep talking about more metrics and everything else that's going to be associated with it, or we're going to have a really good job description on what that business manager or general manager or strategic manager or whatever he's going to be called or her is, and what that value of that dollar is as well too. I don't think it's lost money because there's still going to be deliverables come out of here. And, you know, and that was my biggest thing is that, okay, what if we just end up with a CAO again? Did we spend 90,000 and not get any value out of it? No, like there's going to be some great deliverables that will be provided to us. But next council needs to make sure, or this council, depending when we get to, that we take that information and we apply it for where those efficient, because there's savings that are going to be stated in those areas as well too, that we can use. So.
Okay. Councillor Groot, do you want to add your 2 cents?
I probably don't have a lot to add. It was very well said by Councillor Whetstone, who led our committee. I think I would agree with his sentiments there. You know, this is a significant project. And when you go through the project book, like there is a lot of work that this company is going to do. And I think it's probably opportunistic for us to see how our structure looks going forward. As Councillor Whetstone said, maybe it looks similar to how it does today, but maybe it doesn't. And I think if we look at the world around us, there is a fair bit of evolution happening in how businesses ran. And I think municipal won't be any different. It's a good time to take a look at it.
Okay. Open it up for councillors' comments. Deputy. Anything?
Nope, I think the committee's put their foot in the right direction to look at this at the whole organization, and that's what we got to do because of the changes coming forward in the future. We got to be more financially responsible for what's happening in our municipality here.
Councillor Hessel had his hand up next, I think.
Yeah, I guess the only thing that I would have liked to have seen in the public report is just where you think the savings are coming. Like, where do you see the other extras? Because I don't really see this in this report for the public. And I think that's the only part I have against the report itself, is that I'm sure I trust you guys. I don't have a problem with that. I just, when we're spending this type of money and we're not showing what some of those other deliverables might be, that might help us gain back that 90,000. And it's not in a public record. That's where I struggle. And I'm just saying that as more of a, I think you're right. I'm going to support it, but we didn't show the people sitting in the audience what some of the other benefits might be.
Go ahead.
If I may, yeah, and valid point, absolutely valid point. And really the intent of this committee wasn't to pull out efficiencies, that really was the scope. This just happened to be as part of what it's gonna look like. For example, from a service delivery perspective, AI there's one now. Like that's how we're gonna get better. That's how we're gonna do things faster. That's how we're gonna be able to, and not, I don't see us actually potentially even reducing staff. I see us being able to answer the public faster through AI and be more, be much more valuable from what comes to that standpoint. So there's some things we may save money as well too. Who knows? Because from transactional standpoint, administration standpoint, all that kind of, but those type of things, they're going to give us I think they're going to give us some of those leads that say, here's things you should be looking at doing right now. At the end of the day, are they going to put a dollar figure on it? Like any good consultant, they're going to go, no, if you want that, that's the next RFP. But at the end of the day, the scope for this was from a CAO perspective, that's what we were looking at. So they're going to say, here's what the value of, they're going to interview us all. Just so you know, every one of you is getting an interview based on what the process is today. And you're going to say, here's what I'm seeing, here's what you're doing. And then they're, and we're going to look at it and they're going to, for me, I'm going to say something and they're going to say, okay, at the end of the day, once we get it all. So council, this is what I'm hearing. And that job that you guys are looking at is we can put a job description together. And then we're going to tell you what the value of that job description is in the marketplace. Then we're going to know where our savings are, because it could come in at $100,000. And I'm not going to suggest what our last CAO was what we were paying. But there would be savings, obviously, right? And we could see it in 2 years. We could see it in 1 year. We could see our return in 3 years. But it's something that we really need to do it. So I think there's going to be some spin-off material that they're going to give us that will allow us to look at future savings, not necessarily under the scope that was requested.
Yeah, and that report that you have there, once it will be for public document situation. I'm not sure where I'm getting the public doesn't know. Well, first off,
I'm talking about.
we're paying,
interrupted.
let me finish.
Okay.
We're paying 80, 90, if this motion passes, they're telling us what they're doing. We instruct, let's step back to when we made this motion. We all agreed, I think, by the motion that we bought into the argument, we need to look at something different. I would say that they showed us the big picture. 35,000 just was talked about. If you just want to hire us to do a CO thing like everybody else has done, because the others, that's 35,000. Keep in mind, the last person, we didn't hire anybody. So I guess in a way and it wasn't, and hiring a consultant, I've been part of consulting and hiring, and 4 or 5 years later, they leave or whatever happens. But, so 35, to me, the 50, I think the difference between the 90 and the 35 is what, about $55,000? I think they've shown us a number for 55,000. We're gonna assess and do a deep dive, and then we're gonna come back, and you're gonna be part of the process. And they're gonna move it along in a fairly timely fashion, because I think we need to do that. But they're gonna really ask tough questions and then come to us with some options. And it's for 55,000, if we can have a different named person, facility thing, which slows the curve up of leadership, then so be it. There was there was a number of companies that sent in their thing. And as the report said, this was the only one that we could open up the whatever, because it fit the criteria of the numbers. And it was, you get what you pay for. We all sit back and go, wow. I think everybody did. When the CEO/clerk told me this last Thursday, I make no bones about it. I'm glad I was sitting down. But in listening, and I talked to all three people, just as you know, just for all of you, I texted that Greg is on well-deserved holidays, Councilor Lamport, but I individually asked all of them tell me why I should support this. And it was interesting that they all had their different views, but it all came down to this, to that point, which is brought out by these two people. And summed up by my simple thing of 35 or 55 more to find out maybe some cutting edge stuff. We might have, and I take it like it's my money. Too, and I'll stand behind this and support this and see what happens. We've made some changes up at the county that nobody thought we could do. We've talked about it this and made tough decisions, and I think this is a chance to be fair, to let a third party look at our structure and force us to think too, from what I understand. I'm gonna leave it at that. It's been moved and seconded, but is there pardon? I thought it was moved and seconded. I apologize. No, I just asked for general comments first. Is there a mover or seconder, and we'll talk about the actual motion? Is that's okay? If there's a mover or seconder for this recommendation, and then we'll talk about the recommendation. Councillor Sangster moves, seconded. Okay, from the board, it would be nice from one of you on the board to that was on the board, stand behind it a bit. Okay. All right. Pardon? What? Sorry, did I miss something? Counselor, did I miss something?
Just stated I did have my hand up and you said there was.
Oh, well,
another
I'm
hand up.
sorry. I didn't see it. I was looking over at this counselor I went across. Excuse me, point of clarification. Are you insinuating something, sir? Yes, you did. Oh, well, keep in mind, your voice does carry. And I accept apology for that, because I heard something that you insinuated that I don't look at you to take your hands up. And that is not what I was doing. You said it. You can accuse me of disagreeing with you, but don't ever accuse me of deliberately not looking at your hand. Go ahead.
Yeah, so this is similar to one of the agenda items that we had earlier, which was when I mentioned about us taking the lead on new initiatives and trying to do things differently. This is it. We've gotten, me and the mayor have gotten some letters from CAO administration committees or whatever you want to call them that have been pretty heavy about what we're trying to do here as well too. So there's some nervousness in that field, which is good, because maybe that'll help change things as well too. I'm not suggesting that there isn't value in what they do, but you have to look at the size and the structure of your municipality and see if there's other ways of doing things, or else we're always going to do what we always are doing, and we're not going to get anywhere. And at the end of the day, we have to start thinking out of the box if we're ever going to try to get all the work done and save money at the same time.
Okay. Any further discussion?
I just want to say thanks to the committee because this is really great. I've seen some of their KPMG reports, and I'm really looking forward to everything coming from it. Definitely to be a leader, we have to make changes and not be afraid to do them.
Okay.
Comment.
Go ahead.
There's one thing I would like, can we expedite the process? Because I'm worried we're going to run into a lame duck issue here.
So through you, your worship, I did reach out to KPMG. I did just ask if there was a way to maybe shorten up the tail end of the process. From what I understand from the proposal, the kickoff meeting is when we will agree to kind of the project charter and make sure that they are on the same page as council. And so that would be something that we could definitely talk to them about then, but they have confirmed in an email that they could make it a shorter process.
And that'd be great. And I'm sure they know, but if you could remind them about the lame duck, and so that might even give them a target date to have things completed. Thanks.
And I don't want to, if this motion passes tonight, of course, that if it doesn't pass, it speeds things up both ways, I guess, but also just keep in mind us as counselors, when the dates are, we have to commit. I'm not going to treat this as a budget issue per se. Budget, I work very hard as a chair to try to get everybody that can meet a meeting at least once. But in this one, when they say it's whatever date, if it's quorum, we're going to keep moving. We're all going to just have to decide, you know, and it's tough. I know I'm gonna miss one too, or, you know, we have our businesses. But I'm pretty sure one meeting isn't gonna do the final thing. I'm sure it's a process. But just keep in mind we're part of the solution and part of the problem too on that. So let's all keep that in mind if this motion passes. So everyone, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Okay, I'm gonna call the motion then. All those in favor? Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously for the record. Okay, thank you, council, and thank you, the three of you and our acting CAO for getting this done and moving forward. All right, we're now at our finance, cash in lieu of parkland. And thank you for that background information. And council, where do you wish to be on this? There's a receive the for information purposes, and that's number one. And then there's number two, but where we, number one, start with Councillor Groot, Councillor Harris. And be collected and all those in favor of that motion? Okay. And also then the second, bring back for information, or do you want to have, do you have some numbers you already want to put in? Yep.
I think we gotta have it come back as information, but being the province has done something with their development charges right across the province. Let's wait it out, but get the information, bring it back to council, then we can discuss it at that time.
You know, that's just for future projects, okay? Where we'd spend the money. The first one, it's gonna have a life of its own anyway with DC charges. All right. You're moving the second one? Councillor Walden? Everybody clear on the motion? Everybody ready to vote? All those in favor? And any opposed, motion carries. I think there's clearly we can change that, even the act. What they've been talking about, we're $500. That does have to change, I think, a little bit, for sure. Okay, that gives you some marching orders. That's what you're looking for at this point. Special services area rated for street lighting, and this is something too that our treasury department worked long and hard to help streamline. We gave them some direction. Are we ready to pass this bylaw? Councillor Harris, seconded by anybody? Deputy Mayor? Any questions on the report? All right, then, all those in favor of the bylaw? Any opposed? Motion carries. And then for street light information report, received for information, and that council utilize X and related Blue Water street light special area system options. There's an X there. Yeah, but you have an option. Okay, we can do two separate motions, receive for information at this one, and then we'll look for direction. Seconder. Anybody seconding? Okay. All those in favor, receive for information. Any opposed, motion carries. All right, now, what do you want to do? Options. Counselor.
Like, deals that me or you?
No, I think that's you.
Option B was the one that I was leaning towards, Mr. Mayor. It seemed to be, as opposed to having to do credits to properties and stuff like that, use up what is there and not charge until that is depleted, and then carry on with the new rates.
Okay. Seconded. So discussion on that motion. Everybody understand that, what he's referring to? It's getting late, but okay. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Any councillors' announcements? None? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Saturday, April 11th, Candlelight Memorial Walk out here as well too. It's 1 kilometer candlelight walk, hot chocolate served, and it's a donation to light a memorial candles, 25, 50, or $100, and all proceeds go to the Huron Hospice.
Very good. Anything else? Go ahead, sir.
Two items, in the discussion, we just talked briefly in the discussion about our sanitary landfill, like lagoons and other municipalities at, Good Roads. Provincial government representatives stress that they're making that a priority. I don't know if you knew, Bernie mentioned to us down there that Huron East received $14 million for the one for Huron East, which is good to know. So that's interesting. At least they're stating that as a priority. And the second one, we were extremely, I thought, privileged that Minister Lisa Thompson invited us to the Queen's Park for breakfast and did us a tour. And we mentioned a few things we were interested in at breakfast time, but it wasn't official lobbying, but it was quite nice to be able to do that.
Okay. Anything else? Counselor Sangster?
Thank you. I just wanted to say congratulations to the Zurich Thunder hockey team. They had a championship game at the arena and it was packed. They went into overtime and won 3-2. And this Sunday, April 12th, is the Zurich Toy Show and Sale at the Zurich Arena.
Thank you. Alrighty, anything else? Seeing none, we have no new business, but we have a notice of motion submitted by Councillor Whetstone, 7.1. So what is the process tonight?
Yeah, if Councillor Whetstone, if you wanted to share it or read it, but there's no discussion this evening.
You don't get a seconder tonight?
I can read it quickly. Bayfield's making an important milestone this year. The community celebrates 150th anniversary. A number of celebrations and events are being planned throughout this summer to recognize this historic occasion. Great idea. A request was sent to me from Pam Nolan, Booton Miller, to commemorate the anniversary of painting the crosswalk that runs from Clarence Creeker Square across to the sidewalk near Parkside Sandwich Shop, including the Bayfield 150 logo on the design. Therefore, I, Councillor Whetstone, request that staff report back on the estimated cost to paint the commemorative sidewalk and incorporate the Bayfield 150 logo with a goal of having it completed by late spring.
You have a seconder?
Not yet. That's next time.
No, I thought you needed.
Sorry, through you, your worship, I think that Councillor Lamport, you did already have lined up as a seconder. The procedure bylaw says a seconder before it goes on the
So
agenda.
you're seconding Councillor Hessel?
Unfortunately, he didn't show up.
I don't think that's why he's not here. I'll give him back.
He didn't like my motion.
I now. All right, it's, yes, no discussion, but yeah, the new rules we have are like at the
That's right.
county, you have to have a second
That's true.
to move it along.
Seconded it.
Okay, well, we got that work done. We're now at confirmatory bylaw 30-2026, April 7th, council meeting. Anybody? Councillor Sangster, seconded by Councillor Whetstone. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. A motion to adjourn. Councillor Bolden, seconded by Councillor Harris. All those in favor? Motion carries. Everyone have a good night. Have a safe week. We got